So yeah, like I said in the introduction earlier, I'm Pat Brigham, was Regional Director for the Southwest. And before that I worked for the Youth Conservation Corps in Vermont, and part of what I did there was Grants Director. I don't know why I have this fascination with writing grants and raising money. Some people are terrified about it. There are pieces of it that I don't enjoy, but there are pieces of it that I really do. I think it really crystallizes your project when you can put it all into one document. It really makes people think very, like the committee or the team developing the project. It makes people think really critically and start to really put some sort of meat onto the bones of the project, and it's great to see it all written up in one place. I really like to see I love seeing funding coming for a project. I think it really is putting mountain biking in a whole new place now. When we were a bunch of dudes with 6-pack of beer and $500 a couple of years ago, and to see grants of $10, $20, $30, $50, $100,000 coming to mountain bike projects, I think is a good thing. So a couple of steps. Let's talk about a couple of steps for fundraising for trail projects. Up at the top here, it's really important for folks to communicate with the team that you're working with. Say you have a board of your chapter board. You might have 4 people who are the fundraising committee. It's really important that everyone else knows what you're doing, because in small towns there's a lot of overlap, and it's really important that, say you're working with the Chamber of Commerce, for example, that there aren't like 2 different people contacting the Chamber of Commerce because one guy happens to be their neighbour and another woman happens to ride with the Chamber of Commerce director. So communicating and developing a plan internally of who are we going to contact, and which type of organizations are we going to approach, and who's the point person. That's kind of the number one before you even go to these organizations, or even start brainstorming a list. Get a plan together of who's going to be taking the lead. And if whatever your project is, it's going to evolve. What you decide or plan to do now will look similar but very different whenever it's on the ground in 2 years or 3 years time. But at least getting some kind of a summary document together, like a white paper, if you want to use that term, outlining who you folks are, what your chapter or what your club's all about, and a summary of the project. We want to develop a 9-mile trail system with a 2-mile kids loop and a 4-mile flow trail, or whatever it is. Just having some of those some sort of facts and figures around your project summarized into one place. And it's also really important so that you have that one document and everyone's talking the same language. Whenever someone bumps into the chairman of the local Rotary, or someone bumps into the chairman of the local scout troop, or the city mayor, that you're all talking about the same thing. So having the project sort of summarized just into 2 pages, real simple, is a very important step. And then thinking about sources of funding, where money comes from. You've got the traditional sources that sort of always jump to mind. There are bike shops who support the industry, or bike shops who support mountain bike clubs. Has anyone here ever worked or owned a bike shop? I'm sure some of you guys have worked. Yeah. Bike shops are extremely generous, and they're usually very community minded and very philanthropic, but they're quite often tapped out because they're getting hit up all the time for a camelback for a raffle, and can you donate a bike? Those things all hit their bottom line in some way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those things all hit their bottom line in one way or another. So hitting up bike shops is generally not something I do. If they want to be part of what you're doing, if you're having a raffle or whatever, that's cool to keep them involved. But don't think of a bike shop as kind of your sort of pot of gold where the big money's going to come from. Quite often bike companies, like I know that Norco and Specialized both have grant programs, and your local Norco or Specialized dealer is kind of the point of contact. So where a bike shop could be very helpful is them working with their Norco or their Specialized rep to help get a grant of, I've gotten grants for like $10,000 from Specialized and $7,500 from Norco. So those local shops can help with those, but hitting up the shops just for the donations all the time, I tend to avoid it. Other traditional sources can be things like events. Somebody mentioned like a movie night or a beer night, and you get you sell your beer glasses, you can play a movie and get a donation of sales. They can generally be good for raising a couple of $1,000, and they're fun to sort of build a community, and everyone gets stoked. There's a big movie playing on the screen. and they can quite often provide vital the seed funding. You know, if you can go to a potential funder and have some money to start with, whether it's $2,500, that's usually seen as a big chunk for a small club. So fundraising events and those movie nights can be good to get just those initial dollars together. Crowdsourcing is something that I haven't really delved into in too much depth, but all the time you see these GoFundMe and Indiegogo or whatever they're called, and it's funding for for bigger projects. It's kind of strange that these days crowdfunding is considered, I would consider it a traditional source, but it's kind of a pretty commonplace these days. But the places that I've been working with, is there a pointer on this? Do you know?
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work? Okay.
You can not on the TV.
Yeah, it's a pointer.
You can blind somebody.
So other places that I've been hitting up more recently, and non-traditional sources are hospitals, regional development agencies, and tourism departments or chambers of commerce. If anyone has the recent in the book, the Bike Park book, I wrote a chapter in there, or like a 3 or 4 page section, specifically about those traditional funding sources. So the first case study here, this is Caliente. About 2 hours north of Las Vegas, just over 2 hours. It's mostly BLM land. The city are involved, and the state parks. So, it's a phenomenal landscape. It's 4 million acres. It's insane how big it is. And I went and had several meetings with different city councillors, county commissioners, the BLM, state parks folks, and just talked about this idea of developing a whole from scratch mountain bike trail system that is both beneficial to the local community, so the kids will benefit, the local families will have somewhere to recreate, and also attract tourists and be good for the economy. And everyone jumped on board. So we committed $5,000 from the IMBA Trail Building Fund. If you're all on our mailing list, you probably got a letter recently saying, please contribute to the IMBA Trail Fund. It's very real. I write my check personally, and lots of people commit funds to that. And then the different regional directors have authority to use pieces of it wherever we think is a good place to do it. So in 2013, we committed $5,000 from the Trail Building Fund, and that was donations from members. It was matched by $5,000 from the Lincoln County Commission, and with that $10,000, we did a sort of conceptual plan. Then it was matched by $40,000, which was $15,000 from the BLM, $15,000 from the Lincoln County Economic Development Authority, and $10,000 from the city. So the city's money came from the bedroom tax. Lincoln County Economic Development Authority see that developing this trail system in their community is a good thing. And then with that $40,000, we did a much more detailed plan and paid for several staff. Joey and Jeremy over there, Chris Lehman, they each spent probably 3 or 4 weeks. So it's probably like a 9 or 10 week process. Staff weeks. They were in Caliente back in November and starting to do like a 40-45 mile more detailed trail visit. We have 3 large federal grants that have currently been submitted. The state parks have submitted one, the city have submitted one, and the BLM have submitted one. And those grants are to a much bigger BLM pot of money. And there's a very high likelihood that it's going to be funded, and we'll know by the end of this year. But it could be close to $2 million that comes to that project by the end of this year. And it was started by the 5,000 matching that we were able to go and get started with. It was then matched by the county commission, then matched by the BLM and the city. So this little piece of money was certainly able to multiply itself very significantly, and could lead to close to $2 million by the end of this year for trail construction. So just a quick summary. Number 1, talk among yourselves and your team. Who knows who? Who knows someone at the hospital, or who knows someone on the local Chamber of Commerce board? And think of those non-traditional sources. Like, don't just think of, we've got to head up the bike shops. Those guys have been really mean. They're not donating the Camelback tours this year. Bike shops are tapped out. Think of those bigger chunks where you can go and get $10, $20, $30, $40,000 at a time. The events are fun and they build a community and they're great to get people excited. and they're good for you guys to raise, you know, $2,500 on a Thursday night, you know, fundraiser. That's just money that you can use to go and get started with. That's not the sort of the end of it. Develop a summary document of what you're doing. And then with these organizations, it's really important to meet with them, to learn who they are, listen, and educate them on who you are. You know, they're going to get, if they have a grant deadline for July 1st, you can guarantee on, you know, June 30th, they're going to get a stack of applications like this, and the ones that say to whom it may concern are going to the bottom. The ones that have gone and met with them and sat down and explained who you are and had that face-to-face time, you're going to have a much stronger chance. So listening to who they are and learning about their what they want to do in the community is really important. And you guys explaining that, don't just go in there, you know, and talk about dirt jumps and you know, 18-inch wide super awesome single track. Go in and talk about what you're doing to make this a better community. And then tailor the conversation to their fields of interest. Like, for example, with the Legacy Foundation in Sierra Vista, their website is all about health and wellness in the community. I'm not going down there and talking about tourism. It might happen if we develop a kick-ass trail system, but tailor what you're saying to what they're set up for. Obviously, if you're going to the Chamber of Commerce and they want to see more tourists coming into town, that's the conversation that you're having. Leverage those funds towards other sources. Follow up, you know, send them a letter or an email a week later. What do you think the opportunities are? How can we work together? And then write the proposals. Get them in there.